Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good day to all of you and warm greetings from the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta. It's my pleasure to be presenting the keynote address on this occasion of the 2023 edition of the Mekong Forum, and I know that it's being held in the wonderful Kunming city in Yunnan province, China. And what's even more wonderful is on the topic that's been chosen today, which I believe is of immense significance, the topic on deepening of the ASEAN community building with a focus on the emerging role and contribution of the greater Mekong sub-region through the ASEAN lens. Everyone in attendance today at this important forum, I believe, recognizes the importance of the regional cooperation and collaboration to address the challenges and also to seize the opportunities that lie ahead. This gathering today, it clearly represents a shared vision, a prominence to progress, and also a determination to build a much better future together. The Greater Mekong region comprises, of course, Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Yunnan and Guangxi provinces of China. It lies at the heart of Southeast Asia economic growth. This sub-region boasts some very rich cultural diversity. It boasts an abundant natural resource and, of course, strong economic growth potential and a hardworking and dynamic workforce. And over the years, the Greater Mekong region countries have all experienced some significant economic development, leading to increased connectivity, to increase heightened even regional integration. ASEAN, on the other hand, as all of you know, is a powerhouse of collaboration and cooperation among its 10 ASEAN member states. And that includes, as you know, Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, PDR, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Together, all of these 10 countries have all demonstrated the power of regional unity, creating a single market and production base known as the ASEAN Economic Community. This cooperation has facilitated the free flow of goods, the free flow of services and skilled labor, capital and talent, in fostering economic growth as well as bolstering the region's resilience. While the average GDP growth, global growth rate averages around 2.8% globally, ASEAN, meanwhile, despite the challenges in 2023, is expected to experience a positive growth of 4.6%. And again, next year, a growth of about 4.9%. While the rest of the world, as you can see, is deglobalizing and decoupling, ASEAN, meanwhile, has worked very hard, especially the last 3 years, right in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, to finalize the largest free trade agreement ever. That is the signing of the RCEP agreement. That involves, of course, this is an ASEAN-led free trade agreement led by the ASEAN member states, but it involves 5 of our large trading partners, which includes Japan, China, ROK, Korea, as well as Australia and New Zealand. The RCEP has been in full force since the 1st of Jan and has been fully ratified by all parties as we speak. On the onset, I would also, with the same breath, also like to recognize the critical role played by the Greater Mekong countries, especially the support that has been given in the ASEAN community building efforts. The Greater Mekong countries, the GMS, is the home and guardian of the Mekong River, which is the lifeline of Southeast Asia. And as such, it's an indispensable part of ASEAN. The GMS is also strategically positioned as a bridge connecting ASEAN's continental and maritime regions and is the center for many connectivity and economic initiatives. The emerging role of the GMS in the ASEAN community building, it can be viewed in several key ways. I call it several key lenses. First, let me touch a little bit on the contribution in achieving the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint 2025. The ASEAN Blueprint 2025, this is the 10-year guiding document since 2016, which kind of envisions to create a deeply integrated and highly cohesive ASEAN economy that would support sustained economic growth and resilience in spite of all the economic shocks and disruptions that we may be facing. It also further aspires to be a more equitable and inclusive ASEAN, particularly in terms of economic growth in the region, and by working towards providing the path towards narrowing the development gap, significantly hopefully reducing poverty and sustaining high growth rates of per capita income. In this regard, one of the characteristics of the AEC blueprint is to achieve equitable economic development for a resilient, inclusive, people-oriented, and people-centered ASEAN. Now, recognizing that pockets of underdevelopment and as well as development gaps still exist in all countries, ASEAN have continued to coordinate and work closely with the sub-regional cooperation frameworks in the region, including the GMS, all as part of our vision to narrow the development gap. The Initiative for ASEAN Integration, in short IAI, has been a key initiative in ASEAN to address the narrowing of the development gaps in the region by assisting the ASEAN member states in the need by strengthening capacity building to help member states to implement regional commitments towards the ASEAN economic integration. It also looks towards enhancing productivity and competitiveness of the rural economies, as well as emphasizing on the development of the micro, small, medium-sized enterprises, which you know is the heart and the soul of each nation's economic development. In order to meet all of these aspiration goals, collaborative support is needed from the government officials. It's also needed in the development, especially from development practitioners at the regional level. It's also needed from the intergovernmental agencies, the civil society, and the non-profit organizations, and of course, more importantly, from the business and private sector, as well as research and academic institutions. We all need to continue to work through the last mile of the AEC Blueprint 2025. Our eyes, as you know, are now fixated on the long-term vision, even beyond 2025. We will continue to place emphasis on narrowing the development gap agenda, and we believe that the GMS will have a very big role to play in helping the region to move closer to this goal. Second, I do believe that the GMS is extremely rich in natural resources and biodiversity, making it a vital player in promoting sustainable development in ASEAN. We all are aware that our region is prone to water-related hazards, particularly water pollution, the loss of wetlands, floods and drought, as well as adverse impacts of climate change that now affect all our business sectors and all of the sectoral bodies. As we move forward, we must remember the importance of sustainable development. Therefore, I believe a collaborative approach here again between ASEAN and GMS provides a very unique chance to collectively address environmental challenges such as climate change, such as in areas of deforestation and transboundary water resource management. There is an urgency towards action and partnership to achieve water security and to provide a roadmap towards a water secure future in our region. And by pooling our resources, expertise, and knowledge, I think we can implement innovative solutions that preserve our natural heritage for future generations. I think the same will go even for us to manage some of the haze issues that the region is facing. I think this is where our commitment towards circular economy being adopted in how agriculture is practiced in the region is going to go a long way in dealing with the long-term issues that we are facing, such as in haze. Now, engagement with the sub-regional secretariats is very critical. In aligning ourselves, the Secretariat, to our complementarities, we, the ASEAN Secretariat, as well as the GMS, we have the collective responsibility to ensure that our engagement and partnership is regular and impactful, and particularly at times like this where we are facing new crises, new challenges in our growth. Last year, with the support of ADB, we had taken a two-phase joint consultative meeting to be organized, to be held between the ASEAN Secretariat and the secretariats of the other sub-regional mechanisms. These joint consultative meetings, they demonstrated one thing of our ASEAN Secretariat's commitment in strengthening cooperation between sub-regional mechanisms within the region by providing a platform for exchanging information as well as exploring joint activities and also best of class of solutions that we can share with one another. The output of this endeavor is a joint plan of action in a few specific areas where we can work together to achieve our regional goals. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to harness the full potential of the GMS emerging role in ASEAN, it's imperative that cooperation, collaboration, and inclusivity takes center stage. And this can be achieved, I believe, in the following ways. Number one, we need to further synergize between GMS and the ASEAN Secretariat. I would like to emphasize the importance for ASEAN and GMS in strengthening cooperation that will promote synergies and complementarities with the ASEAN regional agenda. Now, in taking our collaboration further, I would like to propose that we expand our policy dialogue and coordination among the relevant sub-regional frameworks in the Mekong sub-region. Now, each of these sub-regional outfits, they all have a key role to play in determining the future trajectory for sustainable and inclusive development for the region. Now, joint cooperation to pursue shared goals could address some of the coordination issues that persist in the GMS. ASEAN, we are prepared to serve as an information database to consolidate details on the various initiatives being planned, as well as implementation and completion that's taking place under each of these frameworks. With this platform, overlaps and gaps in the Mekong sub-region could be identified, and the necessary planning and intervention could then take place to address some of these overlaps. This would lead to a lot better synchronization and alignment of future programs, which could result in much higher returns on investment for donor partners, as well as better creation of quality activities and interventions that will be channeled to create impact, which is what really counts. All this hopefully will also minimize adverse environmental and social cultural consequences. Second, I believe that capacity building and human capital development need to be taken into account, and we need to put more effort into it. Our most valuable asset, as you all know, is our people in our region. Empowering the people of the GMS with the skills and knowledge they need to thrive in the 21st century is extremely vital. Education, especially vocational and skills training and entrepreneurship programs, they all are necessary skills and knowledge, particularly for the youth and also for the business community. It's going to help them thrive in this ever-changing global landscape. Some of these projects continue to be implemented through the initiatives for the ASEAN Integration Work Plan, which has clearly benefited countries like Cambodia, Laos PDR, Myanmar, and Vietnam. All this is part of our efforts of narrowing the development gap agenda. Ultimately, this will again help us unlock potential and also help contribute to our ASEAN collective progress. Next, I also believe we need to look at the cultural exchanges and tourism. The GMS countries, as you all know, boast a very rich tapestry of cultures, traditions, and history. As a measure to counteract the pandemic adverse impacts, the GMS countries have already undertaken various measures on tourism, including fiscal and monetary and training support for the travel tourism business. Now, collaborating with ASEAN in the realm of cultural exchange and tourism definitely can create a vibrant tapestry of experiences for visitors from all over the world. This will not only promote economic growth, but also foster greater appreciation and respect for the shared heritage. In line with this, the framework on sustainable tourism development in ASEAN in the post-COVID-19 era, it has been endorsed by the ASEAN tourism ministers in 2022. Further, ASEAN is also already developing an action plan to guide relevant stakeholders in implementing the identified priorities in this framework. As the recovery from the impact of the pandemic continues to be a priority, the action plan aims to support economic renewable, especially support needed to boost our industry performance for the tourism sector. It is one of those sectors that is still lagging despite we are getting out of the COVID issues in our region. The development of this action plan will definitely require a cross-sectoral collaboration as emphasized in the framework, as well as it requires capacity building programs to familiarize the relevant stakeholders in the region. What's important is also the fact that we know that the growth in tourism, at least in the near term, will have to depend on one another. We are not going to be able to get that kind of growth coming from faraway destinations that we traditionally have relied on. Finally, as GMS is ASEAN's most active region for hydropower development, we believe that you have what it takes. You are a powerhouse, not only for hydropower, but potentially also for other forms of renewable energy in ASEAN. We therefore look to the GMS countries to contribute significantly to cross-border multilateral power trade in the ASEAN power grid. The ASEAN power grid, as you know, is a major linchpin not only for ASEAN energy security, but also for enabling the region's energy transition. Following the accomplishments of the Lao PDR, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore power integration project, and of course noting some of the findings of the ASEAN Interconnection Master Plan Study 3, we definitely encourage the GMS region to continuing pursuing the power integration in the APG North sub-region, and also to be the sub-regional pioneer for multilateral power trading in the ASEAN region as a whole. In conclusion, the collaboration between the GMS, Greater Mekong sub-region, and ASEAN, it's an endeavor that holds immense promise. That promise is there, and it's important that we continue pulling our resources, pulling our knowledge and ambitions, and we all can come together to build a much more stronger, a much more connected, and a much more sustainable future for our people. In August of 2023, the coming of the ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting, and the next month, you will see very significant endorsements by economic ministers in ASEAN in sustainable initiatives. First will be the ASEAN Carbon Neutral Plan, and the second will be the ASEAN Blue Economy Framework. On the digital front, you also will see a very significant endorsement by the economic ministers on the go-ahead on the Digital Economic Framework Agreement, the DEFA agreement, and you'll be asking for negotiators to proceed with the development of the DEFA, where you'll see the biggest net beneficiary in terms of economic gain will be the LDCs of the ASEAN nations. Therefore, let us embrace this opportunity with open arms and work together to shape a legacy of prosperity and harmony that will resonate for generations to come.